Good morning. Welcome to Web3 Weekly Live. I'm your host, Shira Dutman. I was already on. Hi, everyone. We are having a morning, and I'm just warning you right now, okay? So I'm here with Abe from Talismo. I say Talismo. Abe, do you say Talismo?
That was perfect. You're
Okay.
the only one who got it right.
Because that's what I do. We were having a discussion right before we went live about just difficulties of life, difficulties of dealing with technology, getting access to technology, things like that. So, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about is more stuff on Web3. And before we get into it, we like to talk about what the heck Web3 is to help center everybody in the room. Web3 is, I have a cool little banner for this. Give me a second. Web3 is powered by blockchain and cryptocurrency. And so, you might hear it also called Web 3.0. It's the next internet. It's the next generation of the web as we know it, where people are going to start, I don't know how to say, like interacting with the web through blockchain technology. And so, no, you do not have to be a developer to get in this. And I'm hoping that's why you're joining us this week. So, Abe agreed to speak English, Shira. Abe agreed to join us today to talk about NFT utility. So you might have heard a lot about NFTs. It's the latest rage. Everything is NFT, NFT, NFT. And most of you might relate NFTs to like fancy digital art. And fancy digital art that you may or may not know can be programmed with special features. And so that's what we're going to talk to Abe a little bit more about. He's going to explain to us NFT utility. I think that utility is a fancy buzzword that most people are like, who the heck cares unless you're in the NFT world. So, Abe, first of all, before we get into that, we like to figure out who is our guest and why do they know so much about what we're talking about. So, tell us a little bit more about what brought you to blockchain.
Oh, man. Well, I suppose it started with about a 10 or so year long career in e-commerce, slowly climbing up a ladder, moving from place to place, accomplishing things, and then just walking away, not having anything last, really.
Okay.
And
Why not?
especially as one with jobs that usually required a college degree, I didn't have a college degree.
Okay.
So there was always like a glass ceiling. I kept getting frustrated, I suppose, at the walled gardens of the Web 2, the classical business world. And I got into many different blockchains, but settled on Cardano for the security and for the community. And once I got onto Twitter Spaces, I started learning more about why people would want to use blockchain at all. And it's so much more than just JPEGs on the internet, although that's high volume of it.
So a question. Did you come to Web3 as a developer, or were you when you were working e-commerce, did you have sort of different functions, or have you always sort of been more technologically minded?
I've mostly been in front-end web development, web analytics, and managing pay-per-click ads. I usually worked in-house as a brand manager for this or that product. I worked for an electric standing desk brand. I would optimize Amazon listings. I would manage an omnichannel inventory control system. Basically, just making the number go up on the classical business. That was my general mandate.
Great. So not a developer. And I'm going to repeat that for people because I get so many people that are like, oh, I'm not like into tech or I don't know anything about blockchain. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point of Web3 Weekly Live, people. It's to start talking about Web3 and what it means to all the rest of us who aren't developers, because this is like any other industry. This is like the web 2.0. Like, how many of us are actually developers and working in Web 2.0? It's
Right.
like,
Like, here's how you can get over the fear of blockchain. You drive a car every day. You can't tell me that you know exactly how the computer chip in the car works to like manage everything, but you're fine using it because the concept clicks to you. You've been introduced to it. Um, the need is obvious, right? The need is obvious. And that's the analogy to NFT utility.
I like that. And I think that's the whole point of this show is we're talking about how people can use Web3 as opposed to just having it as this word. Like, how are people adopting it? What are the uses? And so let's talk a little bit more about Talismo and how Talismo came about.
Sure. So um, I started getting involved in Project Catalyst, this Cardano-based grant program for apps and pretty much just any measurable impact program that you could build on Cardano. And I'd been submitting since Fund 7 and just watching what other people are building. And it occurred to me that no matter what people were building, there were a lot of similarities with the components. There's some basic building blocks that we are realizing um, need to just become second nature. And I'm talking mostly of token. Everybody essentially is building the same thing in a silo just so that they could get their own project out, which is fine. But Talismo seeks to take some of the most basic building blocks of having a Web3 based business without requiring you to be a developer.
Okay, so do we call that, I want to use the word like as a service, because I feel like things that are as a service are like providing things, let's say services to you where you don't have to know the, you don't have to build the tech out yourself. You adopt it, you purchase it, you license it, etc. So is that how Talismo is built, so that another company can license it, or again, maybe you're a retail person, like the everyday Joe Schmo, like Shira Dedman, and I just go in and say like, hey, I need this. Oh, they already have it set up.
Yeah, we're hoping to make it, we're hoping to frame it in a way that people don't even necessarily have to know that it's blockchain if they don't want to look into it too deeply, but they can still take advantage of the benefits of the system that
Okay. So
they're on. And
why, what does that have to do with an NFT though? Like, don't I have to know it's blockchain to deal with an, to interact with an NFT, because I have to own cryptocurrency, and I have to own a thing called a wallet. So how is it that I get to utilize this thing called NFT utility and not know I'm dealing with Web3?
you're right. There are some basic stumbling blocks going from zero to, getting your first wallet, for example. It would behoove you to have some understanding of what an NFT actually is if you're going to buy into any. Um, and the get started documentation that we plan on having is going to presume that you don't know anything about blockchain or crypto. While there are even some music-based Web3 programs out there that have obvious mainstream appeal. You listen to music, then it's an app that you may want to use. Even those programs aren't necessarily building with a presumption that the user of the app this might be their first introduction to blockchain. So you really have to make it click for people immediately and make it as simple as possible to own. I spoke to an artist a couple of weeks ago. It still sticks with me. I tried to tell her she should sell her art as NFTs, and she said that she was afraid that her bank account would be hacked if she created a browser-based wallet.
Oh, that's interesting.
So yeah, it's the lack of basic understanding of what's going on that really hinders people, but I'm hoping to break through that.
Okay. So here's another thing. We keep throwing out this word NFT. Let's go back to the basics of what an NFT is, besides fancy digital art, because like you said, that's or JPEGs, fancy JPEGs.
All right.
I have defined it as digital assets on the blockchain. Is there another definition you would use to people who are so new to NFTs?
No, I would just elongate that. Maybe go back to what a token is. ADA, for example, is the currency of the Cardano blockchain, and it's a fungible token because uh, each and every one of them are the same. They have the same presumed value at any given time. Whatever, they're all the same. Like
What's
dollar.
funny, totally, I just realized too, because I was going to throw up a definition of tokens I've written before, and I realized that the definition of tokens pretty much looks like the definitions of NFT.
It is, well, yeah, it is. The only difference between an NFT and a fungible is that there's only one of each NFT.
Okay, so
It's
there you go. Okay, so NFT token, pretty much like this, except tokens are like your dollar bills. They're each doesn't, I don't know $1 bill from the next dollar bill. An NFT, though, like a piece of artwork, has value, but that value is subjective and it changes and it's unique because this is a unique piece of art.
correct.
Okay, again, it doesn't have to be art. That's the idea between a non-fungible token and a token, a crypto token, as we know it, like ADA or Bitcoin or Ethereum. I think a lot of people know Ethereum too. All
And
right,
they're basically the same
we got that.
structurally.
Okay.
So they're basically the same structurally. And what we're really talking about when we're talking about digital assets is a small amount of static data on the blockchain and who owns it at any particular time. That's it. When you see these popular NFT projects and you purchase one for a significant amount of money, perhaps, you should know that you're purchasing nothing more than a small static piece of data with a couple of lines to it and attributing your wallet saying it to it saying that it's yours.
Okay, so I have a bunch
Pretty much.
of, I'm going to say I have a bunch of non-fungible tokens. I have a bunch of unique tokens. Why do I care about this NFT non-fungible token utility? Why?
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. When we're talking about just a picture, just like a cartoon or whatever, like not knocking, artists, but um, when you're buying a token that doesn't do anything, then it doesn't have any objectionable value and any like straight up clarified value. Like this token can get you into a movie theater. That has an implicit value to somebody. But most tokens are just a little bit of static piece of information on the blockchain attributed to you as the owner, and they usually have a link to an image. Now, if you want to know why bother with tokens at all, it comes with NFT utility. When only the owner of the particular NFT can get into an event as a ticket holder, or claim a prize, or identify themselves in order to obtain medical records, or to get free merchandise. You can think of NFT utility and Web3 as anything a computer can do or a computer-based business can do, now contingent upon whether or not you have the right NFT. And the simplest example I always give of the, the reason for getting into NFTs for me is not for the imagery, it would be because it represents a movie ticket. And only particular holders can get into a particular web page where the movie might be streaming early. There might be a live AMA session with the crew. It could be an RSVP form to a private event on Zoom. a lecture or a concert. And if only token holders can access that page, then you can monetize whatever you do for a living.
So this is really about, at least for Talismo, Talismo is focused on providing NFT utility to artists, or is there, does it go beyond that? Is it just like any business, or is it more like arts-based businesses?
It goes way beyond that. Our primary target audience are people who are not currently on blockchain, but whose businesses could benefit from such a thing. I could
give me examples. I need examples.
I could talk to an online retailer about Talismo and describe it to them as an additional marketplace channel. So online retailers, they sell on their website, plus Amazon, plus eBay. So they understand adding their inventory listings to other marketplaces and being able to digitize or tokenize their products into digital assets would allow them to not only reach more people, but potentially make secondary sales on items. A museum or an art gallery could, for example, sell ownership of a statue. And they could profit off of the initial sale and royalties from secondary marketplaces and never actually have to ship anything.
Okay.
They're just selling the ownership.
Okay. Right. I think we've talked about that before. Fractionalized ownership is a big thing with tokenization and NFTs, is the ability to, like you said, take this piece of art and create many fractions of ownership, many pieces, so people can all say like, hey, yeah, look at that piece of art, I own it. Well, a percentage, like 1% of it. And my NFT proves it.
Right. It's a lot more exciting to show off your NFTs to your friends if the NFT actually represents an ownership or a privilege of some kind.
So that's interesting that it can represent ownership, but not necessarily possession.
Yeah, in the future, we're going to have people humble bragging, taking out their phones with their NFT wallets, and they're going to show you, this NFT represents a whale that I helped save by donating to this charity.
I got it. It reminds me of those like certificates. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the time that I went to that concert that you weren't at, or however people do what they do.
Yeah, I got it. So no, you don't have to carry around this big like what do you call that? Like your little scrapbook of stuff now that has your like certificate of like having a star named after you and all that. You just bust out your phone now. You're like, hey, look at that ticket I went. That was really cool.
Exactly.
My NFT. Gotcha. So back to this utility.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about this. I want to hear more about what Talismo could do in terms of NFT utility, because I feel like what we said before, people understand things better when they can see why they would use it. So I think one of the things I thought was really interesting that you and I have talked about before was this idea of linking like attendance. That you could go as far as linking attendance or things like that. What else would a business be interested in?
All right. Well, I'll go into the 3 things that version 1 is going to do. And with each, I'll give one example of how a Talismo business owner might use that. So Talismo allows people to log into accounts and create token gates, which are sets of logic that match up NFT ownership to a particular action. So without code, you get to dictate somebody who has this NFT or NFT series or fungible. If they have it, then this happens on a particular.
Like let's say there's a Discord server with all its channels. All of a sudden, it can like open up a new channel that is only has this very specific people. Like you're very special because you own this NFT that opened up this extra door community, private community to you.
That's a good way to think of it. But
Okay.
to be clear, the utility will be working on web pages. And once our
Oh,
API comes out, people could technically build this into a Discord bot.
oh, web pages. I like that because I feel like the only time I ever hear it talk about is Discord servers. I like this a lot. Okay.
So this app, these token gates, as described in version 1, can do only 3 things. It can either unblock a page, it can redirect the user to a different page, or it can return information to the screen. And I'll give one example of how each of those could be used.
Thank you, because I didn't understand 3.
Unblocking a page. So you get a rather uniform script that you just copy paste onto the page where you want the gate to. And if it's an unblocking gate, basically whatever is behind this page, the user cannot see unless they connect their wallet and prove that they have this specific NFT or NFT series. And the most obvious use case for that would be a movie. There's at least 2 movies out, perhaps a short film and a documentary, that have already had to go through the trouble of paying a developer team to create this basic gating functionality so that they could sell NFTs as movie tickets. People would purchase the NFT and visit a particular site and verify they own it, and then the movie would play. So this is that, except you don't need to know how to code, and every filmmaker that comes after them is not going to have to pay a dev team to reinvent the wheel. Just copy paste. Now, redirecting a user, why would you want to do that? First of all, it's great for e-commerce. If you're familiar with Shopify or WooCommerce or Wix, they all have slightly different documentation, but most of them allow you to manipulate the cart or the user session with URL parameters. Therefore, if the consequence of the token gate passing is a redirection to your store, then I could redirect users and automatically apply a one-time use coupon code that provides a free product.
I like that. All right. Okay. That
Right.
is useful.
So anything that your CMS can do, your blog, your store can do through a URL parameter, you can premeditate these URLs. As a consequence of the token gate passing, you could even create like a blog, like a news blog, and then decentralize ownership. Whereas like if you have a token, then you get logged in via URL parameter to an author account that can't get into the sensitive areas, but can create new posts.
That's really interesting. Um, Especially as we talk about, I think it was the last episode of, you know, again, the question I always ask is like, why Web3? Why Web3? And we talked about the concept of decentralization. You
I
know,
was in a music and movie space the other night. We were talking about who could we possibly get in to the Web3 space, any musicians that have dabbled in it before, and why would they even bother with an audience size that's comparatively smaller?
Muse.
It's because, pretty much anybody that grew up in America can probably pick 5 people off the top of their head that has a history of being screwed over by gatekeepers in that industry. They're not happy with their distribution rights. They're not happy with their contracts. And decentralized music and movies on Web3 could solve all that. I remember, I believe Dave Chappelle had some sort of nightmare with Netflix, or was resolved by Netflix. There's Britney, I could throw out Britney Spears, right? Nobody really gets a fair shake when there's just one entity in your way from making money doing what you love. And blockchain gets rid of all of that by selling NFTs that actually do something, provide access to the content that you create or the business that you have. you basically get to do business on your terms.
I like that. I like I said, I think about acts like Muse that just released, well, like a month ago, just released an album. But I feel like they're always doing like radical stuff in terms of connecting to their audiences. Like I remember they were like the first ones to just offer their album. I can't remember which one it was, but it was like, pay what you feel. pay what you feel like it's worth. And I was like, dang, that's baller.
That's nice. You could do that. See, the advanced versions of Talismo we're hoping to make include additional abilities and conditions. So we discuss the 3 abilities that the gate can do, right? Unblock, redirect, or return information to the page. And we talked about the one condition that a certain NFT must be present.
Okay.
But we have other conditions in mind that will make things more interesting for your consumers. You could potentially not only insist that a token must be present, but that X number of Y tokens must be sent in order for the gate to pass.
Okay.
Now you have more of like a paid subscriber model type scenario you could do for your website. You could create a Netflix type situation where you need one token that proves you're a paid subscriber to get all the free stuff, but then you still have to pay to watch some of the newer movies.
Okay.
And that would simply be sending ADA as a condition for the gate.
Okay, reminder for y'all who may not know, ADA is the cryptocurrency of the Cardano blockchain. Got to throw that in because you can't make assumptions that anybody knows what you're talking about.
I skipped over the 3rd ability, why you
which is the one I didn't get anyway. So I needed you to explain.
Information to the page.
Okay.
So you could just have the word hello returned to the page, or it could be something meaningful like a string that's the same as the discount code that's in your cash register in your local retail shop. So if you have a POS system that can do discount codes, then you could put those discount codes as the return of a gate passing. And then in the store, you'd show your phone to the cashier and they'd validate it. And whatever is returned to the screen optionally could be returned in a QR code format. This 3rd option is great for event tickets. Your mic is on.
Thanks for the warning. They go to the web page. It gets returned in the form of a QR code. What gets returned in the form of a QR code?
Whatever information that you, as the designer of the token gate, want returned.
Why would I do that? Because I'm wondering. Yeah, tell me.
Let's go with event tickets. Let's say you're dealing with a large event venue that's contractually obligated to use Ticketmaster or something like that.
Okay.
They already have their fancy Web2 solution for event tickets. There's a lot of problems with Web2 e-commerce, particularly blackout dates. You don't really own anything. And these centralized corporations can pretty much do whatever they want. There's no transparency. Instead, you can have an NFT as an event ticket. Let's say this venue has a system whereby your tickets are validated by QR code. It's extremely common, barcode or QR code. The security guy or what have you is using a tablet to check your event tickets.
Okay. I see where we're going now. Finally. Okay. I see. Yeah. It's like when you put your phone up and they scan your phone. Like when you ever just go to the zoo and they scan it for like a barcode or something.
And that translates to just some kind of string, some kind of hash that their system needs to double check that it's real and that you haven't double used it.
Right. Okay. So it's like you're creating it to deal with sort of like the web, still like the Web2 way of doing things in a sense,
Yeah,
like
so
so
this
that
could be
way
an
it's
easy
interactive.
layer. Yeah, it could be an easy layer on top of that. If I'm going to the event, I can go to a web page on my mobile phone to validate that I have this NFT. And as a condition, as a consequence of the gate passing, what is returned to the screen is that QR code that you premeditated to have come back when you made the gate.
Okay,
And it's that QR code that is the exact same thing
I'm here with
that
you.
would be on the ticket.
I'm here. I finally get what you meant by that. When you first said it, I was like, nah, nah, I don't see the usefulness of this. I'm not sure. But like, I'm totally here now. Yeah, that is super useful. So you're saying this is what we should expect, like in phase 2?
I'll give you another one for the
All
third
right.
option. At CNFTCon, this nerdy convention coming up in October.
I was gonna say, don't assume anybody knows what that is. So
Yeah.
CNFT is like an NFT, like a Cardano based NFT, and y'all have a fancy name for it, and y'all call it CNFT.
I don't know why.
Because you're special. It's fine.
There is a particular well-known fungible token out there called Strippercoin, who had some interesting ideas about NFT utility in person. And if, for example, the consequence of a gate passing was just to display onto the screen the words free lap dance, then the NFTs would be worth something.
True story. True story. Wow. No, I hadn't heard about that. So interesting. You said stripper token, strip token,
Strippercoin.
stripper
I think they
coin.
have an NFT series, a non-fungible series called NFTs, like strippers.
This is how you know how male-centric the space still is. But it's brilliant. It's brilliant. All right, cool. Well, I was also going to point out that to let people know and not to forget that we are paying attention to your comments. And by the way, Cecilia, thanks for the shout out. Great topic and info. We're trying to make Web3 just relatable to everybody. And so that way people who are looking to get into the space or wonder, if it's right for their business, they can learn more about it. This is not a time for developers to be like, listen to my jargon speak. Did you hear what I said? Don't I seem so smart? No, I'm not knocking developers. I just like to tease. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free, write them in the comments. And we'll take a look because the whole point of this is if you have questions, we want to be able to address them, answer them. Let's dig into this and make sure that we're all wrapping our heads around it. Don't be shy. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Sorry. What were you saying? I was like, I just wanted to make sure that people know we're paying attention. That's the whole point of being live.
That sounds fun. I'll answer some questions.
Okay. Any questions? I guess I don't know. I don't see any coming through. It's all good. I think a lot of people are always too shy to say kind of like what. That's one of the reasons I enjoy. I think you asked me. You said, "Shira, do you need anything to know to prep?" And I was like, "No, I don't. I don't want to prep because I just want to be. I want to be curious. I want to be like, hey, how can we bring this down to like the basics?" And nope. Let's not assume anybody knows anything. And if something doesn't make sense to me, I don't want to ever have something make sense to me because I know it. I want to like have it fresh in my brain so that I can react like somebody else would who is hearing this for for the first time. That's my goal. Anyway, all right. Well, if there's no questions, is there anything that you think that I didn't harass you about in terms of trying to really dig down into what NFT utility is and what people should be excited about for NFTs and what NFT utility can provide them and their businesses, or especially, as artists?
Well, I guess a final message of sorts that I would want to leave would be if you're a creator of any kind, if you're a business person, if you're a performer, a comedian, if you have anything to bring to the world and you feel discouraged by the classical way that things are done with kingmakers and gatekeepers and whatnot, then you should really check out the Cardano blockchain community in specific. Uh, there are a lot of really helpful, intelligent people that are willing to bring you up. And it's like riding a bike. Once you know the particulars of how it works and that, making a browser-based wallet won't hack your bank account, then you'll be able to understand easier why this can directly benefit you. There's absolutely no barrier in blockchain between the fire that you have to bring and consumers that, have something to spend.
Yes, straight up. So disclaimer that I was very curious about blockchain and just like trying to learn so much. And I like being a skeptical voice. And because I want to be like everybody else, like in the sense of what the drawbacks, or I shouldn't say drawbacks, what's the word? The obstacles to adoption are. And
Yeah,
for
that's
me,
that's the big one.
it is, right? But I have to say that what has softened my stance towards blockchain and cryptocurrency and adopting those things have been the Cardano community. Because it is, I think last week we touched on this a little bit because we talked to Conwa. I don't know if you're familiar with Conwa. Anyway, they're doing cool things on with Cardano, and we talked about the fact that it's blockchains there's so many different ones, and they kind of have their own cultures. And so I personally, having come from the what we call solidarity economy, cooperative world, um, I have been attracted to just really the cooperation I'm seeing in the Cardano community. And like you said, people who are like willing to take you under the wings, people who are trying to like really create a system of like learning from each other. And like there are no stupid questions. It's not just, like I said, for developers, which I keep repeating because I think it's really important that people understand that. And so what are ways? So I put Talismo's website. What are other ways that you think you said, hey, this is really easy to get into, people willing to bring you into the community? What are good ways that they can come into the community?
Come into the community. Get on Twitter Spaces.
Okay.
Just start listening to what people are talking about, and then when you feel comfortable, ask questions, and then they could direct you to more resources online for anything in specific that you need to know.
Okay. So should we start with Talismatic NFT?
Sure, why not?
Awesome. Yeah, and see who you're following. Start there. I know. I was avoiding Twitter Spaces. We did a whole episode about Twitter, social media marketing on Web3, and how Twitter Spaces is such a big thing. And it's just, I didn't want to believe it. I kept fighting it, and I'm like, now I'm like on Twitter Spaces and stuff. So anyway,
Probably the biggest thing I can think of, really, because there's still this stigma around cryptocurrency for the major enterprise media platforms. As in, Facebook has a policy against advertising crypto. MailChimp doesn't mess with crypto-related businesses yet.
Really?
Yeah. They
Oh,
have a program
wow.
called Omnivore that scans everything in your system and your landing pages to make sure they're not related to blockchain, or else they will just tell you your business is not right for them. Yeah.
Whoa. Oh
Yeah.
my
Same
gosh,
with
you just
Google
blew
ads,
my
same with
mind.
Twitter ads, same with LinkedIn ads.
Oh, I'm so glad you're telling me this. I'm not even being funny. I had no clue. How did you find out?
Well, in a couple of instances, I spent a couple of hours making a campaign before the system got suspended. But in others, I was a little bit wiser and just checked their policies on prohibited categories. Like tobacco, you can't advertise tobacco, but they lump us in with like casino gambling. It's terrible. This is like the drug war, and it'll fall.
Whoa. Whoa. Okay. Well, again, thanks for sharing that. That's deep. So I wonder, what does that mean for film 3 projects? Because, like as a filmmaker or other artists, I'm sure are questioning that. If you're an artist and you're creating these NFTs and you want to promote that, are you telling me I can't do that via YouTube ads?
Probably not. Yeah, and
Whoa.
I think perhaps that might be one reason why the Cardano community has a good ethos, because it all has to be pretty much organic and based on the merit of whatever you're doing or whatever you're contributing.
Wow. So that's why you have to be like on Twitter. You have to be creating
Highly
communities.
recommended.
Yeah, like connecting into these communities that are there that are engaged in like blockchain or care about wow. Dang, I keep trying not to be on Twitter and you keep telling me why I should be on Twitter. This is awkward.
I'll make it nice and safe for you. The I'll take you to the spaces where everybody's, nice and helpful
Okay.
and informative.
Oh,
Follow the Twitter, and then whenever you see me in a space, that's probably not a degenerate one.
I know that's another word we'll get into like later, degens. I've learned that one too. Okay, well, thank you, Abe, for let's see. Should we? No, I'm going to end on talismanic. Okay. Thank you again for joining us and explaining to us and walking us through what NFT utility is. Um, wow, my brain is still blown on what you just shared with me. So I'm gonna have to think about that one a little bit more.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, y'all, for joining. We'll see you. Ah, that's too loud. We'll see you next week because we're going to have somebody join that's going to be talking about decentralized roadside assistance. Yeah. Okay.